first home game of the new Premier League season ended in that 1-0 defeat against Nottingham Forest. Saints had 2/3 of the possession, but just one shot on target. Not a classic, Glenn. Lots of hype before the match. It didn't quite deliver. How do you sum up that one?
It was. Yeah, I think the build up was decent. I think everyone was up for the game. Certainly, players, fans, everyone I spoke to was up for it. And then the opening whistle went, and it was a somewhat bewildering performance. I'm going to use a few words. I think like bewildering, worrying, strange. It was odd. I'd love to know how Russell Martin thought we were ever going to score a goal, setting up like that. I don't know if we're going to get into the tactical side of things later, or do you want to do it now? But it was just bizarre. The first half, we got to half time at 0-0. That's about the only real sort of good thing about the first half. It was a succession of chances for Forest, really, where we just looked nervous. Players who don't usually make mistakes were making mistakes, like Taylor Howard-Bellis passed the ball off for a corner from 40 yards at one point, and we just seemed to be. There didn't seem to be anything connected about the performance. The main talking point will obviously be where the strikers were stationed. We basically, if you want to put numbers on it, it was like a 5-5-0 formation. And there was no one occupying the central defenders. No one. Do you remember Ralph Hasenhüttl always used to talk about the red zone at the top of the penalty area? But it's basically between the top of the penalty area and the penalty spot, or the 6-yard line, and that's the red zone where a ridiculously large percentage of goals come from. We hardly had a player in there the entire game. The one chance we had in the first half was Kyle Walker-Peters got to that area by cutting across the top of the penalty area, but obviously that's not a normal occurrence to have. You're not going to create 15 chances or whatever with your fullbacks doing that. So it was weird. The positioning of Brereton Diaz and Armstrong is baffling to me, and for the life of me, the only way I can think it was supposed to work is if central midfielders break into that red zone and supply a goal threat. Now, with the best will in the world, Aribo and Smallbone are good at many things, but bursting at speed into that area of the pitch, like Frank Lampard used to do, for example, that's not their strengths. And even if they got there, they'd struggle to get back. The one time we got a midfielder into that area in the first half, Flynn Downs got there, and then Forrest got the ball, broke, and it was horrible. All three of our midfielders were out of the game. So it was just a mess. We got in at half time 0-0. That was the only good thing about it. Second half was exactly the same until Forest scored. They had numerous breaks, and they finally scored. We didn't clear a corner, and they scored. After that, the subs came on, and I think it was about 75 minutes, and we looked better through having a centre forward. Cameron Archer came on, and positives were the appearances of Matis Fernandez and Tyler Devlin in particular, who they did as much as they could in the time that they had. Charlie Taylor put the most dangerous ball of the game for us across the box. Archer nearly got on the end of it because we actually had a player in the middle in the zone where you can score goals from. So it was bewildering, slightly, very, very disappointing. But we've played like that against Getafe in the last friendly. We played like it to a degree against Newcastle last week, certainly in the first half, and we did it yesterday. We haven't even looked like scoring really against 11 players in any of those three games. So I think this is a tactical thing that needs to go in the bin, and we need to start again. It reminds me a little bit at the start of Ralph's last season, where he worked pre-season one particular way, and then within two games he'd abandoned it and gone back to what we knew. So. I think we have to. Russell Martin needs to open up a little bit and not be so cautious. He talks a good game about being brave all the time, but the way we set up yesterday wasn't brave for a home game against a team that's probably going to finish in the bottom half this season.
He was quite honest with his assessment afterwards, I thought, Alfie. He said he was keen to state that the lack of focal point up front was not why we lost the game, but it didn't help, did it? As Glenn said, we've just not looked like scoring for you can go back to that friendly game as well, the last 3 games, really.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't why they lost the game. The reason they lost the game for me is because they had no energy. It was really pedestrian. If you look at the statistics, and they do paint a picture on this occasion, they had 90 passes per shot attempted, and they averaged 45 in the Championship last season. It was 40 against Newcastle against 10 men. So they were knocking the ball around with no real endeavour. Forest, I think, averaged 18 passes per shot, just to put it into example for you. Excuse me. So clearly that's a problem. Maybe that's the reason why. I mean, Walker Peters had 4 of your 7 shots yesterday. He was the only person who I felt in the first team who actually made a difference. Popping up in certain areas, making things happen. Forest were obviously more direct, and I don't think you need to throw the book out and change everything. But it is interesting to see Brereton, Diaz, Armstrong on the wings, where they are not really getting into the box. They had a couple of chances against Newcastle, but as Glen points out, both of them were against 10 men. I asked Russell Martin about it, and he just simply said, like you said there, that wasn't why we lost the game. We played like that at the end of last season. It makes us more solid as a team, and maybe we will tweak it, maybe we won't. But I think that maybe we will tweak it thing is a suggestion that, all right, yes, they're probably going to tweak it, and I think they definitely have to. The biggest takeaway for me on the game is that it's going to cause panic, and it's going to cause sort of reactions. And normally I'm quite sort of level-headed. I say, there's no need to go overboard. There's no need to sort of throw everything out and panic, start calling people useless. So I don't think anybody is useless. I think that they've got the team they started, for me, is their best 11. The players who came off the bench did make a good impact, the majority of them. But on this occasion, I think they do have to just grin and bear the criticism, because when you set up like that at home against a team who are in the bottom half, and Forest, by the way, their 11, I think actually looks quite good. We spoke to Michael on the podcast last week, and he said that they're not thinking about relegation this season. And when you see their players, Gibbs White, Hudson-Odoi, Alanga, Chris Wood, the defence, you don't actually sort of slate them as a relegation team. But to play that way at home, to disappoint the fans like that on a really big occasion, I felt it explains why people are going to be annoyed about it. And I don't think they can have too many complaints. I think they've just got to put it to one side, work on it, and put it right.
And it's difficult to call out any players, because I thought, actually, man for man, they kind of did what they were asked to do yesterday. It wasn't down to sort of individual performances. Martin, you were kind of milling around and chatting to a few people after the game. I know, what was the vibe like? What was your opinions of that game yesterday?
Massively disappointed. Everyone was so disappointed. I thought the fans brought incredible energy before the game. People were there 2-3 hours before kickoff. The fan zones were brilliant. Such good energy around the stadium. Best I've seen for a league game. Outside the playoffs, I thought it was brilliant. And I just expected us to start on the front foot, and we didn't. We just didn't start on the front foot, and it really surprised me, the setup. I thought in Newcastle we played really well, and we were outstanding up there. They passed the ball well, though we looked quite toothless there. I thought he would have started Archie yesterday and gone with a 9 through the middle. That was the one thing we really lack. And I went on a few podcasts last week, Forest ones, chatting to the guys at Forest, and the thing I always kept coming back to is I wasn't sure how we were going to hurt them, and it turned out that way. We did. They pressed us like unbelievable yesterday, and everybody said that afterwards. The press they put on us, it wasn't just 2s and 3s; it was 5s, 6s, and 7s, and that's the one thing that Newcastle didn't do last week. They give us so much space and so much time to play. We didn't get that yesterday, but for me, you cannot set up like that at home. You have to go with an out-and-out forward, somebody to play off the last man, because where the goal's going to come from, we've got to find goals. Yeah, we've got more compact. I agree with Russell. We've got more compact. It worked really well in the playoffs, and we needed just to nick that one goal. But in the Premier League, it's so hard to get opportunities. We had the one shot on target yesterday. We won't win a game setting up like that at home, because Forest are a side that only just stayed up last season. I thought they were good yesterday. I thought the two midfielders totally dictated the game for them yesterday. I thought they were great on the ball. They'd got forward. They got men in the box. Everything we didn't do, they did yesterday. And a lot of other teams would have taken a lot from that. I think anybody that would have watched that game yesterday, Man United will be looking at that next game at St Mary's. Brentford the weekend, they'll all be looking at the way we set up. And I think he will have to tweak it, and he will have to make changes quite quickly.
Is that where the 2 new signings can come in, Glen, and make a difference, do you think? If we're going to be playing like that, then obviously you need those central midfield players arriving into the box, and perhaps that's asking a bit too much of Smallbone and Aribo. As well as they've played, that's not, as you say, they're not those sort of Frank Lampard style players, are they? So is that where the new signings might come in?
Well, they might do. I mean, I thought Fernandez looked promising. He looked to play forward, that was a bit of a frustration to me with both both Smallbone and Aribo yesterday, and praised Aribo for the way he played up at Newcastle. But I think he struggled yesterday. And Will Smallbone seemed to go into safety first mode, so the ball gets played to him. He's not on the half turn. He's not looking to go forward. He's just squared up and he just knocks it straight back. And that happened quite a few times. And the difference when Fernandez and Dibbling came on, because Dibbling's if you just watch him, forget where the ball is for a second, just watch Tyler Dibbling for a couple of minutes on the pitch. He's got a head like an owl. Honestly, he's looking around all over the place all the time. He knows where the space is. When the ball comes to him, he knows that he can turn, and he's always looking to drive forward. Now, I'm not saying that we should throw an 18-year-old in the team straight away, but I do think we need to trust him more with more minutes on the pitch. Fernandez, it was a promising start, but it was only 15 minutes. He looks quite a slight sort of player. You know, he's not a big, powerful lad. But he looked like he could handle himself. So that was promising. I'll be interested in him playing against Cardiff in midweek and seeing how he gets on with that one. With regards to Big Les on the bench on loan from Chelsea, I can't really say. I don't really know anything about the guy. We know the player he's described as, a big, powerful, rangy, running, box to box midfielder and stuff like that. But until we see him, can't say. But on the face of it, I would say that that midfield, certainly for home games, needs freshening up a bit. And I'm hoping that Ugachukwu in particular can prove to be as good as I hope he's going to be, which will enable us to open out a little bit, because we'll have better legs in midfield, basically, to be able to get about the park, and we won't need to basically have 5 defenders and 5 midfielders. Hopefully we can go to a back 4 and still find the balance between attacking play and defensive play, because it's just not there at the moment.
Is the plan, Alfie, do you think, still to manage those minutes for Tyler Dibbling? Because I just seem to remember when we had good 17, 18-year-old players before, we just used to chuck them in and they'd have a really good run of games, and all right, they'd get signed by Spurs or Arsenal or whatever and they'd be off. But you would see these kids a lot sooner. It just seems to be they're being a bit more perhaps protective, and maybe we're not going to see him starting, but he's got that role to play from the bench. They just kind of managing him a bit more.
I think there's maybe 2 sides to it. I think the first one is the sort of tactical demands. He is really focused, obviously, on work against the ball tactically, despite the fact they have 80% of it every single game. And I feel like there's just a lot to learn in his position. So I think that's one side of it. Obviously, the pros of bringing Tyler Dibbling in probably outweigh the cons to that, because he is forward thinking, he's direct. I've watched him for 3 years in the academy, and he hasn't really changed. He's always played when he's played as number 8. He's always played in that way. The other side, I think, maybe medical, because Romeo Lavia, for example, came in, played 10 games, and no one's seen him since. Yeah. He's an invisible man. The Premier League is a big physical test. So, do you want to put in a young lad and then potentially hamper his career? So, I think you've got to be careful with these guys. But I think Russell Martin's really warming to the idea of giving Tyler more and more minutes, because at the start of pre-season, it was a case of, let's take the pressure off these guys. And I think that is still the case. And he's giving him more and more every single week. And now he's starting to say, you know what, he's actually really special. He's our biggest attacking threat. And it wouldn't surprise me if he gets sort of 25, 30 minutes. But I think it would still be too early to chuck him in. But you never know, especially a place like Brentford.
Martin, what was your take on the changes yesterday? Obviously, we got to see a couple of the new faces coming on. Enough to give you a bit of hope there?
Yeah, I just think the changes were made too late, really, for me. I thought they needed to be made a lot earlier in the half, because the second half panned out. We started slightly better. I thought we were on the front foot a little bit more for the first 5-10 minutes. They weathered our relatively small storm. But I thought the impact that Tyler Dibbling made when he came on was quite incredible. He got fans off the feet. He's brave. He's strong. I watched him in the warm-up. He's really bulked out. The size of his upper body now, he's stronger. He spent a lot of time in the gym. He looks like a player that's fearless to me. And that's what we need. We need somebody that's fearless, somebody that's prepared to have a go, prepared to go past people. And that's what he brings. I think he brings so much to us. Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on him, but I think what Alfie said there is absolutely spot on. I think what he can bring now, for Russell's going to just need to believe in him now. We've always believed in young talent in the past. He's the one shining light, I think, from that academy that's coming through at the moment. Sam Amio is going to be brilliant, but this young boy can make an impact here and now in the Premier League, and I think that's what we need. Archer, when he come on, I thought He needed a bit more time, but he gave us something slightly different. And we need somebody. I'm not overly sure he's going to be the number 9 answer. I still think we need a bit more physicality up front, but he will give us a different option, and we need that. You need options, don't you, up front? You need options in all around that front 3, front 4. We don't have anywhere near enough. And if we're really, really going to kick on this season, it's a massive week in the transfer window just to make sure they get what they need in the final third. He said about it in the press conference yesterday, and just add to what we've got and give us that extra chance. But Tyler I think he's going to be magnificent this season. Just believe in him. We all love him. I think the manager loves him as well. And let's see what he can get out of him in the coming weeks.
Last week, Glenn, it was all about Alex McCarthy. I got to say, he's not. I don't think he's the problem. I thought he played well yesterday.
He played really well.
Crosses and not a lot he could do about the goal. But I thought he was all right yesterday, actually.
Yeah, he was. I mean, I think there's always going to be a sharp intake of breath whenever he starts knocking the ball around, trying to play 2-touch and whatnot. So yeah, he answered. I think if he'd had some real dodgy moments yesterday, I think the crowd would have been on his back. Wrongly, but that's the way it is. I think if he'd have had a couple of dodgy moments, that would have been the case. But I thought he played well, and to be honest, he's the reason we didn't lose by more. He made 3 or 4 really good saves and that's kind of what he's done since he's got back in the team. He's made good saves, and that's why he earned himself a new contract. So he will always have this chink in his armor with his distribution. That's just the way it is. He's at an age now where he's not suddenly going to get better at it. But he certainly wasn't the problem yesterday. I mean, the problem yesterday, I mean, if you just look at the goal we conceded, it was Joe Aribo had a kind of lack of appreciation of the dangers around him if he lost that ball there.
Was there a foul in there for you or not?
No.
They were protesting, weren't they? But
for 1 second, I was hating myself, thinking, "Oh, come on, VAR, do something." But and I just thought that wasn't a foul. It was never a foul. He wasn't strong enough, and most managers will be telling you to put your foot through it from there. Now we don't really do that, so we kind of we obviously drill it into our midfield players and defenders to try and keep the ball and try and spring an attack from there, sort of thing. But where he was with his back to, he was facing our goal with about 3 players behind him. It was just the wrong decision. I know he's a big, strong lad, and he wants to try and, prove that and protect the ball and whatnot. But put your foot through it, man. Get it out. Even if you well it off for another corner, it really was better than losing the ball there. But there was another problem with the goal as well. Is that when the cross came back in, I mean, Sugawara kind of took the initial shot off McCarthy, but there were 2 unmarked players at the back post. Yeah, and Gibbs White was obviously not going to miss from there. But yeah, going back to McCarthy, I thought he had a good game, and he'll have the mindset of that most professional goalkeepers would have, is I don't care if you're bringing in someone else, I'm going to make it very, very difficult for you to leave me out. And playing like he did yesterday, it would be tough for him not to be in goal for the Brentford game. And I firmly believe that if we were signing a player like Ramsdale, it would be different, because you're obviously signing a named goalkeeper who's used to playing in this league. But we're bringing in the lad from Holland by all accounts, and I'd be very, very surprised if McCarthy's not in goal against Brentford on next Saturday.
Yep, same.
Martin, it was the first game kicking off in front of the Northern Wall, kind of 20 odd years in the making. Lots of expectations around that. What did you make of the atmosphere? I kind of felt before the game that they've nailed it with the fan zones. It was great to see so many people there so early. Whereabouts were you in the stadium, and what did you make of it all?
I was in block 1 and 2. I like to sit down. I'm not a massive fan of standing up all the time. I don't mind doing it away games, but I do like the opportunity to grab some footage as I'm watching the game for my channels and bits. But I enjoyed it at block 1 and 2. It was really nice to see that open again. Fills the stadium up a bit more. Where I was, you couldn't really hear the away fans, but I believe they were really decent further down towards the chapel. But I thought the Northern Wall was good. I thought the fans started really well. It just, because we didn't have the energy on the pitch that we had, I think it dampened it slightly, to be honest. I think if we started on the front foot like we did against West Brom in that playoff game, and we really got amongst Forest and we were creating opportunities, But the fact that we played with such slow pace and we weren't really at the races, I think it maybe dampened it slightly. But I think the club have nailed it, really. I think it was brilliant, the fan zones outside, and the atmosphere was brilliant. I thought it was really good. I think it's something that we needed to do for such a long time, I think, and it can only help the team going forward to have Matt Letitia on the pitch before the game with Kenzie. And he said it's something they should have done from the very start. But obviously they spoke to the relevant people and the authorities, and I think they've got it spot on. From my point of view, I thought it was really good, Martin.
We do player of the week in
Sorry,
just a
Mark,
moment.
I just want to add,
That's
if
right.
I can,
Yeah,
because obviously I'm relatively close to some of the people who've been working hard on the changes at the stadium stuff. And I went to the Northern fan zone before the game, and I was actually quite surprised by how good it was. I thought it was really good. So it's just the decorations inside. They've sort of recycled the barrels, an actual building as well. I think at one point it might have even been a tent rather than a building. So I think they definitely improved on the initial plans. So yeah, I thought that a lot of those people deserve some credit. So I just wanted to say that.
I was going to ask you, because this has been a long time in the making, hasn't it? And they've obviously been mooting these ideas for a long time, but actually to get on and do it, and the investment that's taken to get us where we were yesterday. I mean, I got there just before 2:00 and couldn't get in because it was so busy. It's like, what's going on? And there's still a few more things that I know they're working on too.
Well, look, the key thing as well is that it's just going to bring more revenue into the club. So if you're there 3 hours before kickoff, you're going to buy 6-7 pints. That's money that you would have been spending in a pub somewhere else. So
that's £7
and then the game might seem better.
But also, like you mentioned as well, they've got the pub coming in the old ticket office as well, the Dell, which promises to be a pub open every day of the week and stuff like that. So yeah, just important for the club to bring more money in, and I think for the fans as well to feel more connected to their stadium.
All right, well, we'll get on and preview the Brentford game in just a moment. I'm going to ask you all for your player of the week. Is there anything else we missed from yesterday? Any other standout moments for anybody? It was not too much to shout about, really.
No, I mean, I can give you my player of the week in a standout stat. I think Carl Walker-Peters was the only player in the Saints team to register more than 0.01 expected goals, aka nobody else came even close to a sniff of the net. So he's definitely my player of the week.
Yeah, there was some good and bad things amongst but we're talking about individual players. Individual players, yeah, okay, you might win the odd game because someone does something brilliant, but the negatives for me were all about the way the team was set up and the lack of energy and the lack of goal threat. But within that, I thought the back half of the team was pretty decent. I thought Sugawara was decent at right back. He's a new player who he seems to have a sort of like a big personality, and I think he showed that he's playing against Hudson-Odoi, who's a decent Premier League footballer, and I thought he did pretty well. So yeah, I was impressed with him. Yeah, the subs that came on, I think as people have as we've already mentioned, I thought they made things better. And I thought Flynn Downs was decent as well. I just thought he got booked in the first half, and it seemed to me like they were trying to get him sent off basically for the rest of the first half. There's quite a few sort of niggly little tackles going in on him, and I thought he, in amongst what was a pretty sort of limp performance, I thought he at least tried to raise the tempo above very slow, and tried to make things happen. But I mean, the worrying thing for me is that it's turning out at the moment kind of like I feared that it might, and that the back half of our team is decent, but the front half is not. And yeah, we really do need to sort that out either this transfer window or by different use of the players that we've got.
Well, we'll put Flynn Downs then in the vote for player of the week. Carl Walker-Peters as well. Martin, anybody else? I mean, I might chuck Tyler Dibbling in just for that little cameo, and as you say, getting everybody up off their seats.
Yeah, Glen spoke about Alex McCarthy. I think you have to put Alex McCarthy in there. Look, he took a lot of criticism last week and for the mistake he made, but I didn't think he put a foot wrong yesterday. Yeah, he's not great with the ball at his feet, but he kept the score respectable yesterday. I think without him, it would have been a lot more. I really do. I think it would have been a lot more. But yeah, you've got to throw Alex McCarthy in there. It was a good performance from yesterday. He won't be the answer going forward, probably. And we know that we'll speak about it in a while, I would think. There'll be movement in the window this week and bringing a goalkeeper in, but he starts for me at Brentford, like Glenn said. He was decent yesterday. Credit where credit's due.